thank you so much for having me. You know, when I thought about what I was going to talk about today, I really started thinking about my own problems of practice. What am I going through? What is my organization going through? And how am I moving it forward? And the piece that spoke to me most to start was that as administrators, we're doing a lot of talking about that constant tension between the management aspects of our work and the leadership aspects of our work. And it's a push-pull, right? The management piece is right in front of us. It's there. They're kids, it's playground duty, it's the cafeteria, it's teacher eval, it's walkthrough, it's accountability. And then we know if we're gonna move the dial for our schools and our districts, that we have to focus on leadership. And leadership can't be relegated to the month before school starts, evenings, weekends, and oh, please winter break so I can work in my office and plan, right? Because that's where it sits, because we spend so much time within the management realm. Our training says that we know we have to have threaded leadership activities throughout the year so we can both create and leverage our opportunities with our staff, our stakeholders, the administrators, the whole system. And yet we still focus on the day-to-day management because the idea is that we don't have a choice. And why don't we have a choice? Because the system itself isn't set up to support us leading. It's set up to just allow us to triage manage. We've all seen this picture, right, for years. And I feel a lot of accountability to it. And I know it also is true. It's the work that we should be doing. We should be making sure that our students are ready for school. And they should be reading at 3rd grade and 9th grade on track, and all of those things that get us to successful graduation and college and career ready. We all believe it, but it's also so overwhelming. Making it happen, us being responsible for it and to it. And when I look at it, I get a little tired. And then I go to work and I start plugging away and I manage and I manage and manage, knowing that I should be leading. So we've got initiatives and grants and accountability, but really we need to be focused on teaching and learning as leaders because we're the ones that are trained to help make that happen. But we're doing the management tasks. So I've decided enough was enough, and I was really just spending time thinking around what am I going to do differently, because I was tired, working a lot of hours, watching the management team work a ton of hours, and everybody wasn't moving the dial the way they wanted to. And I didn't know how much longer I could push on the system, and I'm from rural America, there's not very many of us, right? And I'm sure you guys feel like that too, where you're cleaning the toilets one day. I do have my forklift operator license, because there is only other one person that has it. So that would be me in my suit some days. But I realized that we were going to have to do things differently as a team if we were going to meet our goals and objectives. And so I started doing some research and some work around distributed and shared leadership. And we've heard the concepts of shared leadership. You have to share leadership. But it's a lot bigger than just asking somebody else to do something for you. It's really about developing a system of leaders and followers within specific situations. And I started diving in. And I chose this as my dissertation topic because I thought, well, you know what? If I'm working hard at this, I might as well use it to move my efforts forward. And so I spent a ton of time just taking a look at those relationships and my own management practices and my own organization's practices. So it's important to note that distributed leadership in and of itself was born out of understanding that leadership and management tasks are too complex and they're too difficult for us to be done by a single person. And we know that in our hearts, and yet every single day we go to work and we tend to do it by ourselves. So what are we going to do? We have to make a change. We have to decide to change. And it's a big project. So we have to move beyond what I read was called the superhero version of ourselves. Meaning we're just going and we're plugging away. We're like, yeah, I can make this happen. I'm going to go to this meeting, I'm going to go to this committee, and I'm going to make this thing happen. And then we leave the meeting and we have all the tasks. right? Like everybody else is like, yeah, that's awesome, yeah, that's great. And no one leaves with anything else to do, and yet there is another committee meeting. And so therefore, once again, I'm moving forward my superhuman efforts of these leadership tasks, and I'm not getting to where I want to go. So when we implement distributed leadership, what we do is we maximize the efficiency, productivity, and capacity of everyone in the system. And to do that, we have to develop and share the responsibilities of leadership and our management. And I wrote on a yellow sticky note because I know some of you are thinking something like, seriously, she did not just say to like give over to the teachers the job of making good decisions. and I'm saying that yes, and I'm saying that no. What I'm saying is that we can't release ourselves of all the responsibilities, but that if we develop scope of work, clear systems, and clear boundaries, it doesn't have to be us that makes the decision. The decision is in the system, or there's a check and balance within the system. You're not tossing it off and saying, yeah, whatever happens, the reassess is on you. I mean, that's not gonna work, right? But we are working on making sure that we're joining in a collaborative and inclusive manner the management and leadership of our organization so that we can improve to our designated outcomes. We know we can't do it by ourselves, and so we have to do something differently. So in order to share leadership, we have to address our own mindset. I was just chatting around mindset. It's really hard to change our thinking as administrators. So you look at that past traditional leadership style, and then you move towards a future shared leadership style. And it's a shift in our own behavior that's required to make this work. So when we move away from the traditional role and position, meaning I'm in charge and I make the decisions, and we start to invest in the talent and the capacity of those around us, we create more school leaders. And those school leaders do the work with us. When we move away from being the only one to make decisions to developing systems so people can respond within a specific framework, we free ourselves up for time to lead. We can be in our office and the organization, your building, your district, it's running within those frameworks. And then we have some time to invest ourselves in moving the organization forward. Because it's about the future, not right now. How do we thread those systems together? When we move away from giving instructions all the time, do this, do that, okay, now do this, okay, now do that, to teaching people how to respond in given situations, we empower them and we create efficiency. They become engaged partners in the process. And they know what to do. We trust them to know what to do. And again, within a specific system or context. You're not giving away your management leadership rights or responsibilities. You're helping the system to move efficiently by developing a process that they can do so efficiently. When we stop always being the super expert and instead engage others in a collective action, our information is more robust, and we have relationships of trust. Everyone in your system has information. This morning you heard about a walk and talk around culture, right? Go and ask people what you would change, what you would do differently, what's working, what's not working. I know from my own mindset or my own thoughts or my own lens, but I don't know what the cook or the custodian thinks unless I ask them. And I have to be willing and open to ask them and get the feedback that hurts or that I don't like. And it's painful. I ask a lot, and it hurts a lot, I'll say, but it's worth it. It's worth it. When we stop delegating our tasks and instead delegating full responsibilities, we again free ourselves up and empower others. If they're responsible and they know what to do and the system is set up, we no longer have to do it. And if we're not doing it, we have time. We have time to lead. And so the management and the leadership construct begins to get more into bigger buckets of time rather than that small center. Now, it's important for me to say that I never really have felt like there should be one leadership style only. I could never behave completely future shared leadership style because there's a point in time where role and position are absolutely necessary. And I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with making decisions or taking action when I need to do it. But that my general pattern of behavior should be around supporting and implementing systems, trust, relationships, and shared capacity if I'm going to address my problem of practice, which is I'm spending all my time managing and not leading. The distributed leadership perspective, however, it requires 3 key things: develop capacity, develop systems, and develop relationships. The relationship part is key. So, through my reading for my dissertation, I found this quote, and it spoke to me. Even though factors beyond the school walls, like student socioeconomic status, state of funding, and the like, do indeed influence student achievement, school leaders must focus on things that they can leverage. We do talk a lot about how we don't have money, and we do talk a lot about the kids in our system and how that detracts from our ability to make things happen. And I don't discount it, but it doesn't get us anywhere. So instead, let's focus on the key stakeholders that can help us move the dial. If we're looking at not doing it alone, who are the people that can do it with us? And can we get creative around who does it with us? Does it have to be just teachers? Can't it be our CCOs? They have similar goals now. Our business leaders want professional, skilled workers. And I don't mean professional like their actual technical skills. Now they're really pushing in on soft skills. We really need to focus on every layer of the organization and stop worrying so much about the hierarchy of our cooks, custodians, instructional aides, teachers, administrators, that system, and instead making it nice and flat, finding who can do the key work and making that happen. These people need to be called to action. They're not going to just come to the table. They've not likely been asked before. Even teachers these days seem to be really struggling with more. So we have to ask them to the table. Then we have to give them the scope of the practice and teach them how to do it. And then we have to allow them to do it. And that's the hardest part for us, because we have to release responsibility, which is really scary, because at the end of the day, we know that we're the ones that's going to be on the front page of the newspaper, right? Don't give away those tasks. Give away the easier ones. So, distributed leadership work is big. It's complex. It's not something that you're going to listen to in 15 minutes and decide that you can go home and do it. If you have good questions around it and are interested in it, let me know. I've got some short books, 100 pages. They'll get you started rather than the big long ones that I've been reading. But as I pulled some concepts out for you today, I came up with some bullet points. And these aren't new things. These are things that you know. It's about putting them into practice that's the hard part. So we have to focus on our own leadership behaviors. And that starts with fully committing to the mission and established outcomes of your organization, and hopefully they're shared. And that your values and your actions always point to those. And when they don't, you detract from your ability to make it happen. You have to embrace to the knowledge that you can't do it by yourself. It's super hard, and I know that's going to be, you think maybe, oh yeah. But when you're making decisions, realize that tight hold you have on it, and try to release it a little bit. Remember that you don't always have to be the leader, and that being the follower is powerful as well. Be willing to listen and learn from everyone. We talked about that. Develop relationships of mutual trust and support amongst all stakeholders. Think back to your long list. Make a list. What about your Rotarians? What about the city librarian? I saw an amazing lady at McDonald's the other day whose a child comes in every day with their parent, and assuming that's where they eat. And she said, how was school? Did you make it? What happened? She was a key leader. Who are those people in your system? Find them. Work with them. Trust them. Develop relationships with them. Participate in repeated acts of trust. I read this recently and I thought, what does that mean? I mean, that you say, oh, trust me, right? trust me, I did this really cool thing, I'm the leader, when do I ever hurt you? But the idea was that all of our actions, all of our behaviors, the things that we do and say have to be repeated over time if you're going to develop a true culture of trust. You need to go slowly and with purpose. This is not my best thing. I love innovation and I like to move. And so every once in a while I'm way ahead and I'm like, where is everybody? And I have to remind myself to go slowly and build on the strengths that I currently have. In a small community, sometimes we have gaps. And I have to start where I don't want to start, but that's where the truth is in starting. And that's okay. I have to make that okay. And then we stretch, push on those gaps so that you can move it forward on a regular basis. And take the time to lead, not just manage. You have to do this. You have to make a decision to put it in your life, because the management task will be first, and it's right there. So you're going to have to figure out in yourself how to do this thing while you're hopefully putting in systems of shared leadership. Focus on your leadership practice as well. Develop the capacity of staff and stakeholders. Establish the systems. Consider your culture and context. It is not going to work for you if you don't recognize what you currently have and what your district and your building will currently accept, and then move from there. Establish your network and fill those gaps. Adjust often. Check in. It's okay to change your course of action if you still get to your intended outcome, and maybe you change your outcome, because that's the work that needs to be done. We also have to communicate and market our efforts. Look at all the campaigning that's happening right now. It's that repeated, in your face, somebody buy this toothpaste because it's the best thing in the world, and then we don't do that as educators. We don't put visual and verbal messages to our community, to our students, to our teachers and any stakeholder about the work that we're doing and how we're moving things forward, the words that we're saying, that repeated aspect. I call it marketing. We talk about it all the time at my job. Let's market this task. What's it look like? And then celebrate, honor, and highlight the small and big achievements. We know these things, but sometimes we forget them. We forget the amount of time that we need to say thank you, good job. What does celebrating the achievement of someone else truly mean? And I don't believe that we can get to that place where we need to separate those leadership and management aspects if we can't start changing our leadership practice and changing our leadership behavior.